In the year 2042, Earth was not looking for trouble. Scientists around the world were busy studying distant stars, mapping asteroids, and searching for signs of life in faraway galaxies. At the International Space Observatory, a large team worked day and night inside a quiet control room filled with glowing screens and soft machine sounds. They were used to seeing strange signals from space. Most of them turned out to be natural radio waves from dying stars, radiation from black holes, or simple background noise. Nothing truly surprising had happened in years.
Anomaly detected. It's accelerating. Rerouting power to the containment field. Stabilizing, monitoring the core.
Placed far beyond Pluto's orbit. The system was designed to catch very faint signals from the edge of the solar system. Usually, the data looked messy and random. But that night, something caught her eye. A pattern. At first,
anomaly detected in Sector 7.
Glitch.
Rerouting power to stabilize.
Every few minutes.
Readings are normalizing now.
It was not smooth like natural radiation. It had gaps, clear pauses, almost like breathing. She zoomed in and ran the data again. The same pattern appeared. Her heart began to beat faster. She called
Signal
two other
spiking. Check the numbers. Could be equipment failure. Run a diagnostic.
They
Running it
thought
now.
was
Reset it.
It's back. Stronger and clearer.
They reset the system. The signal disappeared for a moment. Then it came back, stronger. This time, it was clearer.
The pulses were not random at all.
They followed
mathematical
sequences,
sequence constants.
prime numbers, ratios, symbols based on universal physics, constants. These were not things nature casually created in perfect order.
By early morning, the small anomaly had turned into a lockdown investigation. The signal
was traced to the outer edge of the solar system, somewhere beyond the Kuiper Belt. That area was mostly empty space filled with icy objects and debris. There were no known human satellites that far out. The biggest question was simple and terrifying. Who sent it? The team recorded hours of transmission. The pattern repeated again and again. It was structured, layered, and deliberate. AI translation systems were activated to analyze the deeper structure. When the artificial intelligence broke the signal into pieces, it found something even stranger. Inside the pulses were visual data maps. They were not pictures
Orbital shift detected.
in the normal sense.
Confirming telemetry.
They were encoded
It's stable.
star charts,
Asia sector is responding.
constellations plotted using binary coordinates. At first, the scientists assumed it was a map of a distant region of space. But then someone overlaid the data with Earth's star catalog. The room went silent. The map matched our solar system more specifically. It marked Earth's exact position. Dr. Marquez felt a cold wave move through her body. This was not a random message floating through space. This transmission was targeted. Within
All
hours,
stations report
government
status.
agencies
Sector 7 secure,
were
Captain.
informed.
Anomaly detected in
Military
Sector 9.
officials
Divert
arrived
resources.
at the observatory before the public even knew something unusual had happened. The building went into restricted access mode. Phones were monitored. Staff members were told not to speak to anyone outside the facility. The signal kept coming. It repeated every 7 minutes. Same structure, same urgency. When
The anomaly
Lucas
is spiking.
joined the
Isolate the
analysis
sector.
team,
It's spreading to the
noticed
core
another
systems.
pattern
Divert power to
hidden
find
inside the
firewalls now.
message.
Copy.
The pulses were grouped in clusters that suggested emotion. The intensity increased toward the end of each transmission. It was not just data. It felt like a call for help.
Velocity is
After
spiking.
3
It's on a
days of
direct course.
nonstop decoding,
Can we project the impact
first
zone?
major
Impact
breakthrough
in 90
came.
seconds. We have to do
The message
something.
contained what appeared to be a symbol representing identity. The AI translated it loosely as Concord. It was likely the name of the species or their alliance. The next segment was harder to understand. It referenced movement, damage, and something approaching at high velocity. The words were not exact translations, but the meaning was clear. They were in danger. But
The
most
message was
shocking
written for
discovery
someone
came from a
advanced,
deeper layer
someone
of the
powerful.
transmission.
They thought we
There
were
were
powerful.
embedded technological reference assumptions about faster-than-light travel, fleet formations, and defensive shields. The message was not written for a primitive civilization. It was written for someone advanced, someone they believed could fight. Dr. Marquez leaned back in her chair, staring at the screen. A terrible realization formed in her mind. They thought we were powerful.
They had made a
Somehow,
mistake.
The alien civilization
A massive one.
had misread Earth's electromagnetic signals, our radar systems, our military satellites, our nuclear test stand believed we were an interstellar species, hiding our true strength. From their point of view, Earth's radio noise probably looked like advanced tactical communication. They had made a mistake, a massive one. The signal was a military
They contacted our new moon base. The signal source is moving
likely
from within our system.
Their fleet was attacked near our solar system in their desperation. They sent a call to what they assumed was a nearby ally. Instead, they contacted a planet that had only recently built a permanent moon base. The situation became even more serious when new data arrived. The signal source was moving, slowly but clearly. It was not a distant broadcast from light years away. It was coming from within our own system.
Something was out there.
Publicly.
Once
Nothing
we
was said.
answer, we confirm we
News
exist.
outlets continued reporting normal events. Social media buzzed about sports and celebrity drama. But behind closed doors, world leaders held emergency meetings. For the first time in modern history, rival nations shared classified space surveillance data without argument. The fear was simple. If we ignore the message, what will they think? If we respond, what do we say? Because once we answer, we confirm we exist.
Late one night, Dr. Marquez replayed the signal. The rhythmic burst sounded like a heartbeat echoing through space.
Barely slept. Coffee cups piled up beside computer terminals. Everyone understood they were living in a moment that would change history forever. Dr. Marquez replayed the signal late one night when the room was almost empty. She listened to the pulses through converted audio software. The rhythmic burst sounded almost like a heartbeat echoing through space. She imagined an alien crew stranded on a damaged ship, waiting for reinforcements that would never come.
The pattern shifted. The timing was faster. The energy spikes were stronger. Whatever was happening, it was getting worse.
Believing help was on the way. Then something new appeared in the latest transmission. The pattern had shifted slightly. The timing was faster. The energy spikes were stronger. Whatever was happening out there, it was getting worse. Earth had never faced a decision like this. Humanity had spent decades asking if we were alone. Now the universe had answered, but in the most unexpected way possible.
We were not alone. Someone out there believed we were strong enough to save them. The biggest question was whether humanity would answer.
The signal continued to repeat, steady and desperate, drifting through the darkness toward a planet that was completely unprepared for what it meant. The biggest question was no longer who sent the message. It was whether humanity would answer.
They had made a mistake.
Was decoded.
A massive one.
Real fear began. At first, scientists only knew
they had made a mistake.
Civilization
a massive one.
Distress call by mistake. But as more parts of the transmission
they had made a mistake.
The full picture
a massive one
became clear. And what they discovered was far bigger than anyone expected. The message was not just a call for help. It was a warning. The alien civilization, who called themselves something close to the Concord, was not exploring peacefully. They were fighting a war. A massive war that had been going on for years, maybe even decades. The pieces of data hidden inside their transmission showed damaged ships, broken formations, and energy readings that suggested heavy weapons were being used. Earth had unknowingly become close to a battlefield. When scientists studied the star maps again, they noticed something terrifying. The Concord fleet had not been fighting in a distant galaxy. They were fighting near the outer edge of our own solar system, somewhere beyond Neptune, near the dark and cold region filled with ice and rock. Humanity had been completely unaware. The alien message contained repeated references to an enemy force. The translation was difficult, but certain patterns appeared again and again. Advance, impact, loss. It was clear that the Concord fleet had been ambushed. They were not winning. The most shocking part was how the Concord described Earth in their calculations. Earth was marked as a nearby strategic power, according to their understanding. Humanity had interstellar capability. They believed we had advanced fleets, faster than light travel, and strong defense systems. This misunderstanding came from our own technology for over 100 years. Earth had been sending radio signals into space. Military radar systems constantly scanned the sky. Satellites transmitted powerful encrypted communications. Nuclear tests in the past had created massive energy spikes from far away. All of this probably looked like organized military activity from a spacefaring civilization. The Concorde had misread the signs. They assumed Earth was hiding its true power inside secret government meetings. Leaders from around the world gathered through secure video conferences. Presidents, prime ministers, military generals, and top scientists all sat together. Normally, these countries competed with each other. But now, none of that mattered. There was a bigger threat. If the Concorde's enemy forces were close enough to fight near the solar system, then Earth might not stay hidden for long. If the enemy detected human radio signals, they might also believe Earth was involved in the war. One question echoed in every meeting room. What if we are already being watched? As more of the alien transmission was decoded, new details appeared. The Concorde had a large fleet, dozens of ships, possibly hundreds. Their technology was far beyond anything humans had built. They used energy shields, directed plasma weapons, and propulsion systems that bent space itself. But despite all that power, they were losing. The data showed rapid movement patterns. Enemy ships had surrounded them. Some Concorde vessels had gone silent. The distress signal itself was likely automated, sent when their command ship was damaged. Earth was not supposed to receive it. It was meant for another allied civilization somewhere nearby. But because of a small error in navigation calculations, the signal locked onto Earth's coordinates instead. A simple mistake in space, a mistake that changed everything. Military analysts began running simulations. If an advanced alien warship entered the inner solar system, what could humanity do? The results were not comforting. Earth had nuclear weapons, missiles, and experimental space defense programs, but none of them were designed to fight starships. We had never prepared for that kind of war. Meanwhile, the alien signal kept repeating. Every few minutes, the same desperate message echoed through space. Scientists noticed that some parts of the signal were getting weaker. It suggested the Concorde fleet was suffering more damage. Dr. Alina Marquez and her team barely slept. They worked day and night, trying to understand the enemy described in the message. The Concorde used symbols that translated roughly to something like the Silent Dominion. That name alone created chills in the room. The Silent Dominion did not communicate in the transmission. They did not send warnings or demands. According to the Concorde's data, they attacked without negotiation. Their ships were larger, heavier, and designed purely for destruction. The war between these two civilizations had likely destroyed entire star systems. And now the edge of that war had touched humanity's home. Some world leaders argued that Earth should stay silent. If we never respond, maybe both alien forces would ignore us. Maybe they would finish their battle and leave the solar system. But others feared that silence could be dangerous. If the Concorde believed Earth was an ally and we did not respond, they might think we had betrayed them. And if the enemy intercepted the signal and saw Earth's coordinates, they might assume we were part of the conflict, no matter what humanity did. We were already connected to the situation. Space agencies around the world quietly redirected telescopes and deep space probes toward the outer solar system. Sensitive instruments searched for unusual energy signatures after several tense days. Faint readings appeared. They were not natural. Short bursts of radiation, far beyond anything caused by asteroids or comets. They matched the patterns described in the alien transmission. The war was real, and it was happening closer than anyone wanted to believe. Publicly, life on Earth continued as normal. People went to work, children went to school. News channels talked about weather and politics, but hidden behind classified walls. Humanity was facing the biggest discovery in history. We were not alone, and we were dangerously close to a galactic conflict. Inside military command centers, new defense plans were created. Satellites were repositioned. Early warning systems were upgraded. Experimental weapons that had been in research stages for years were suddenly given unlimited funding. The fear was no longer about curiosity, it was about survival. As more pieces of the Concorde's message were translated, one final detail became clear. Their fleet was not retreating away from the solar system, they were moving inward. Either they were trying to escape the enemy by flying closer to the sun, or they were moving toward Earth because they truly believed help would come. The thought was overwhelming. Somewhere in the dark, beyond the orbit of Neptune, alien warships were drifting, damaged and desperate, and behind them, something even more powerful was chasing. For centuries, humanity had looked at the stars and wondered if someone else was out there. We imagined peaceful contact, shared knowledge, and friendly exploration. Instead, the first contact came in the middle of someone else's war. Earth had unknowingly been sitting on the edge of a galactic border, and now that border was on fire.
They had made a mistake,
the world's
a
most
massive
powerful
one.
leaders argued behind closed doors. The alien signal kept repeating. The Concorde fleet was still out there somewhere in the darkness, and the enemy they feared could be moving closer. Every hour that passed made the situation more serious. The biggest question was simple but terrifying. Should humanity respond? If Earth answered the signal, it would confirm that we were intelligent and listening. That alone could change our future forever. If we stayed silent, maybe both alien forces would leave. But silence also carried risk. If the Concorde believed Earth was an advanced ally and we ignored them, they might think we had chosen to abandon them. Worse, if their enemy intercepted the signal and saw Earth's coordinates, they might assume we were part of the war anyway. No option felt safe. Inside the International Space Observatory, Dr. Elena Marquez sat with a team of linguists, mathematicians, and AI experts. They had studied the alien message carefully. The Concorde used mathematics as a universal language. Prime numbers, hydrogen frequency references, and physical constants were repeated again and again. That meant Earth could reply in the same way. But what should we say? We could not pretend to be powerful if we lied and claimed to have massive fleets. The truth would be discovered quickly. We also could not show complete weakness if we admitted we had no defenses at all. That information could spread beyond the Concorde. The message had to be honest but careful. After long discussions, the scientists prepared a simple response. It was built using the same mathematical patterns the Concorde used. First, they confirmed they had received the signal. Then they sent a clear statement, translated into universal constants and symbolic logic. The meaning was simple. We are not who you think we are. We do not possess interstellar fleets. But we are listening. Before sending it, world leaders gave final approval. Some hesitated until the last second. Once the message left Earth, there would be no taking it back. Finally, the transmission was launched. Powerful radio arrays focused their beams toward the outer solar system. The message traveled at the speed of light, racing into the darkness. Then there was nothing to do but wait. Waiting became the hardest part. Days passed, then weeks. The signal from the Concorde continued, but there was no change at first. Scientists calculated the distance. It would take time for the response to reach them, and even more time for a reply to return. Meanwhile, new deep space scans showed increasing energy bursts near the edge of the solar system. Something was happening out there. The war had not stopped. Governments did not sit idle during the waiting period. The possibility of alien ships entering the inner solar system forced immediate action. Military agencies opened secret projects that had been locked away for years. Experimental propulsion systems were taken out of storage. Advanced ion drives, nuclear pulse concepts, and high-speed drone platforms were suddenly given emergency funding. Private aerospace companies were brought into classified meetings. For the first time in history, rival nations shared their most secret technologies. There was no time for competition. If alien ships came closer to Earth, humanity needed at least some way to defend itself. Then, after 23 long days, something changed. The Concorde's repeating distress signal suddenly shifted pattern. The energy spikes grew uneven, almost unstable. Embedded inside the new transmission was a modified response. They had received Earth's message. The reply was damaged, broken in places, but parts of it were clear. The Concorde acknowledged Earth's statement. There was no anger in their tone, at least not in the structure of the data. Instead, there was urgency. The translation revealed fragments, fleet compromised, enemy advancing, assistance requested, regardless of capability. They knew now that Earth was not a powerful interstellar empire, but they were still asking for help inside command centers across the world. Silence filled the rooms as the translated words appeared on screens. The Concorde did not withdraw their request. Even after learning that humanity was technologically young, they still turned toward Earth. Perhaps they had no other choice. Dr. Marquez listened to the audio-converted signal again. It sounded weaker than before. Gaps between pulses were longer. Some clusters were missing entirely. The Concorde fleet was losing badly. Military advisors presented new simulations. If the enemy destroyed the Concorde near the solar system, they would likely continue scanning the region. They might detect Earth cities, satellites, and transmissions once discovered. Earth would appear defenseless compared to interstellar powers. Waiting and hiding might not work anymore. A new idea began to grow among scientists and generals. It was risky, almost unbelievable. What if Earth actually tried to help? Not because we were ready, but because doing nothing might be worse. Humanity did not have faster-than-light travel. We did not have energy shields, but we had something else: unpredictability. Our weapons were primitive compared to alien technology, but they were still powerful by physical standards. Kinetic railguns, nuclear-tipped missiles, high-velocity drones. These were not toys. And more importantly, humans had creativity under pressure. Private companies quickly modified heavy-lift rockets for rapid deployment. Orbital defense platforms were upgraded with experimental railgun systems. Swarm drone programs, once limited to Earth's atmosphere, were adapted for vacuum operations. The first concept of a unified Earth defense fleet was born. It was not a true interstellar fleet. It could not travel between stars, but it could move quickly within the solar system. It could reach the outer planets within months instead of years. Engineers worked without rest. Factories shifted production lines overnight. New propulsion prototypes were installed directly into partially finished spacecraft. The designs were not perfect. Some ships were patched together from different programs. But speed mattered more than elegance. Humanity was building its first space armada out of desperation. At the same time, another message was sent to the Concorde. This one was shorter. We are mobilizing limited defensive capability. It was a bold statement. Some leaders worried it would give false hope, but the Concorde needed to know that Earth was not ignoring them. The reply came faster this time, though still fragmented. One section translated into something surprising. Unexpected resolve, acknowledged. They had not expected help from a young civilization. As preparations continued, telescopes detected a massive energy flare near the orbit of Uranus. It lasted only seconds, but it was stronger than any previous reading. Analysts feared it was the destruction of a large vessel. The war was moving inward. Humanity's fleet was not fully ready. Many ships were still in construction, but waiting for perfection was no longer possible. A final global meeting was held. Leaders understood the risk. If Earth's fleet engaged alien forces and failed, we might reveal our weakness completely. But if we stayed back and the enemy reached Earth, the outcome could be worse. The decision was made. Humanity would not hide. The first wave of ships prepared for launch. Crews were selected from the best astronauts, pilots, and engineers on the planet. They understood they were stepping into history. No one knew what they would face. As rockets ignited and vessels lifted from orbital platforms, millions of people on Earth still had no idea what was happening beyond the sky. But out in space, beyond the orbit of Saturn, A wounded alien fleet was fighting for survival, and for the first time in history, humanity had chosen to step into a war that was never meant for them. The launch of Earth's defense fleet was not like anything humanity had ever done before. There were no public celebrations, no live broadcasts, no cheering crowds. Everything was quiet and secret, but in orbit above Earth. Massive engines burned bright as the first unified fleet moved into deep space. The ships were not beautiful in a traditional sense. They were built fast, not perfectly. Some were modified cargo vessels fitted with railguns. Others were military platforms upgraded with experimental engines. There were drone carriers filled with thousands of small autonomous fighters. A few ships carried nuclear payloads just in case everything else failed. The crews knew they were heading toward something unknown. As the fleet crossed the orbit of Mars, communication with Earth grew weaker and slower. Messages now took many minutes to travel back and forth. Every commander understood that once they reached the outer solar system, they would be mostly on their own. Weeks turned into months as the fleet pushed forward using high-efficiency ion drives and powerful booster burns. The journey was tense but quiet. Space felt endless and cold. There were no signs of battle at first. Then, near the orbit of Uranus, the first evidence appeared. Debris. At first, it looked like scattered metal fragments reflecting sunlight, but as the ships moved closer, the scale became clear. These were not small pieces. Some fragments were the size of skyscrapers. Twisted metal structures floated silently in the dark. Sections of hull plating drifted slowly, still glowing faintly from recent damage. This was the remains of a Concorde vessel. The alien ship was unlike anything humans had seen. Its surface was smooth and curved in strange ways, almost organic in shape. Large circular openings lined its sides, possibly weapon ports or engine arrays. Huge sections had been torn apart, as if ripped open by an overwhelming force. The human crews stared in silence. The war was real, not far from the debris field. Sensors picked up weak energy signals. Faint, unstable, but still active. The Concorde fleet was ahead. As the human fleet advanced carefully, long-range scanners suddenly detected something else. Large objects moving at high velocity. They were not debris. They were ships. The enemy had arrived. The first visual contact shocked everyone. The enemy vessels were massive, far larger than any Concorde ship the humans had seen in the wreckage. They were angular, sharp-edged, and dark, almost absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Their movement was smooth and silent, like predators gliding through water. There were at least 6 of them. The Concorde fleet, now visible ahead, was in terrible condition. Several ships were heavily damaged. Some drifted without power. Others still fired bright energy beams toward the enemy. But their formation was broken. Human commanders realized something quickly. If they waited longer, the Concorde would be destroyed completely. The order was given: advance. The human fleet split into 3 groups. Drone carriers moved to the sides, preparing to release swarms. Railgun ships positioned themselves for long-range kinetic strikes. The command vessel stayed slightly behind, coordinating movement. The enemy ships seemed to notice the new arrivals almost instantly. Their formation shifted. 2 vessels broke away from the main group and turned toward the incoming human fleet. There was no warning signal, no communication attempt. The first enemy shot came without sound. A bright beam of energy flashed across space, striking one of the Concorde ships. The vessel exploded in a burst of white light, scattering fragments in every direction. The human fleet responded immediately. Hundreds of drones launched at once, spreading out in unpredictable patterns. They were small, fast, and difficult to track. Each one carried explosives or electronic disruption systems. Railgun platforms fired next. Massive metal projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds, becoming unstoppable kinetic weapons. There was no bright laser beam, only silent streaks moving faster than the eye could follow. One projectile struck an enemy ship's outer hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a section of the dark surface cracked and burst outward. The enemy vessel did not explode, but it slowed. The battle became chaotic. Enemy ships fired wide arcs of energy that sliced through space. One human drone carrier was hit directly. Its shieldless hull could not survive such power. The ship broke apart, scattering drones and debris. But the swarm had already reached the enemy. Small drones attached themselves to the surface of the nearest enemy ship, detonating in a rapid sequence. The explosions were tiny compared to alien weapons, but there were thousands of them. Sensors showed the enemy vessel's energy readings fluctuating wildly. The Concorde fleet seemed surprised. They had never seen tactics like this, of matching advanced technology with advanced technology. Humanity attacked with numbers, speed, and unpredictability. Another railgun volley struck the second enemy vessel. This time, multiple projectiles hit the same location. The concentrated impact finally pierced deeper into the hull. A massive rupture formed along one side of the ship. Then, something unexpected happened. The damaged enemy ship began to pull back. Human commanders saw the movement immediately. The vessel was retreating from the center of battle. The other enemy ships adjusted formation, covering the retreating unit. They were not invincible. Encouraged, the human fleet pushed forward. Nuclear payloads were armed but held in reserve. Command did not want to risk unknown reactions in alien technology unless absolutely necessary. More drones were launched. Swarms overwhelmed targeting systems. Railguns fired continuously, overheating their own barrels. Several human ships suffered heavy damage from return fire. One vessel lost propulsion and began drifting, but the combined assault was working. The Concorde fleet regrouped behind the human advance. Their remaining ships coordinated fire with the humans, targeting the same weakened points on enemy hulls. Under constant pressure, one of the enemy ships finally broke apart. A massive internal explosion tore through its center. Fragments scattered across thousands of kilometers. The remaining enemy vessels hesitated. For the first time, their advance stopped completely. Then, slowly, they began to retreat. Not in panic, but in controlled withdrawal. The battlefield grew quieter. Energy bursts faded. Debris drifted silently. The Concorde ships that remained powered down their weapons, as if unsure what had just happened. Human crews sat in stunned silence inside their command decks. They had just fought their first interstellar battle, and they were still alive. Damage reports flooded in. 2 human ships were destroyed. Several others were heavily damaged. But the fleet was intact. More importantly, the enemy had retreated. The Concorde fleet sent a transmission shortly after. It was no longer a desperate distress signal. The structure was calmer, more organized. The translation came through slowly. Intervention acknowledged. Probability of survival increased. They had not expected this outcome. Neither had humanity, as the human fleet held position among the wreckage of alien warships. One truth became clear. Earth had just stepped onto the galactic stage, not as a helpless planet hiding in fear, but as a species willing to fight, even when outmatched. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the solar system, the enemy was regrouping. After the battle ended, space became quiet again. The enemy ships had disappeared into the darkness beyond the outer planets. The broken pieces of destroyed vessels floated slowly in every direction. Small fires burned silently on damaged hulls before fading into cold metal. For the first time since humanity had left Earth, there was no immediate threat in front of them, but no one felt relaxed. The human fleet stayed in defensive formation. Weapons remained charged. Drones continued scanning the area for any sign that the enemy might return. Several ships were badly damaged. Engineers worked nonstop inside tight metal corridors, repairing power systems and sealing broken sections of hull. The Concorde fleet, what was left of it, slowly regrouped nearby. Their ships moved carefully, almost cautiously. as if they still could not believe what had happened. Many of their vessels were scarred and broken. Some were barely holding together, but they were alive. Hours later, a new signal arrived from the Concorde. This one was different. It was not rushed. It was not broken or filled with emergency codes. The structure was smooth and balanced. It felt calm. The translation teams on Earth worked carefully. The message was long. It carried something humanity had not yet received from them: gratitude. The Concorde acknowledged that Earth had entered a war that was not its own. They confirmed that without human intervention, their fleet would have been completely destroyed. The probability models they shared showed near total loss before humanity arrived. On Earth, leaders watched the translated words appear on secure screens. For weeks, they had been operating under fear and uncertainty. Now, for the first time, there was something else. Recognition. A few days later, deep space sensors detected a single Concorde vessel separating from the main fleet. Unlike the damaged warships, this one moved smoothly. It was smaller, more elegant in shape. Its structure looked less like a weapon and more like a transport. It was heading toward Earth. The human fleet monitored it carefully, but did not interfere. The Concorde transmitted its intention clearly. It requested diplomatic contact. The word diplomatic carried enormous weight. As the alien vessel traveled inward through the solar system, news finally began to reach the public. Governments could no longer hide what had happened. Strange objects had been detected by amateur astronomers. Energy readings had leaked online. Rumors spread quickly. Then the official announcement came. Humanity was not alone. The reaction across Earth was powerful and emotional. Some people were afraid. Some were excited. Some refused to believe it at first. Religious leaders, scientists, politicians, and ordinary citizens all tried to understand what this meant. Above Earth's atmosphere, the Concorde diplomatic vessel entered orbit. It did not attack. It did not deploy weapons. It positioned itself at a safe distance and waited. Inside a secure international space station, a carefully chosen group prepared for the first direct contact. Scientists, diplomats, military observers, and communication experts stood together for once. There were no national flags in the meeting chamber, only the symbol of Earth. The connection began through data transmission first. The Concorde shared visual representations of themselves in symbolic form. Their physical appearance was difficult to understand at first. They were not human-like. Their bodies seemed tall and segmented, with bioluminescent patterns across their surface. They communicated not only through sound, but through light pulses and electromagnetic signals. When the first live visual link activated, silence filled the room. On the screen appeared a Concorde representative. It stood in a chamber filled with soft, glowing panels. Its movements were controlled and steady. The patterns across its body shifted gently as it transmitted. Translation systems worked in real time. There were pauses as meaning was interpreted. The Concorde representative began by acknowledging Earth as a sovereign civilization. They admitted their mistake in assuming humanity was an advanced interstellar power. They explained how Earth's electromagnetic signals had been interpreted as controlled, strategic emissions rather than scattered communication. From their perspective, no species could survive with such technological inconsistency unless it was intentional deception. They had believed humanity was hiding its strength. When they discovered the truth, they expected Earth to withdraw. Instead, humans advanced into battle. The Concorde representative expressed something close to admiration. They explained that most young civilizations avoid galactic conflict for centuries. Very few choose to intervene in an active war. Earth had changed the balance. The retreat of the enemy fleet had sent a signal across nearby star systems. Other civilizations monitoring the war would now see humanity as a participant, not a victim. This carried risk, but it also carried opportunity. The Concorde offered formal alliance, not control, not domination, an alliance. They proposed technology exchange, shared defensive intelligence, and access to limited star navigation data. They made it clear that faster-than-light travel was complex and dangerous, but knowledge could be shared gradually. On Earth, discussions lasted for days. Trust was not automatic. Humanity had just survived its first encounter. Jumping into a galactic alliance required caution. But there was another reality to consider. The universe had already noticed Earth. Staying isolated was no longer possible after careful negotiation. A preliminary agreement was reached. The Concorde would assist Earth in developing better space defenses and propulsion systems. In return, humanity would provide strategic support within its solar territory. The first exchange began almost immediately. Concorde engineers shared schematics for improved energy shielding, scaled down to match human materials. They provided advanced sensor algorithms that allowed detection of enemy ships far earlier than before. In return, human scientists demonstrated swarm drone tactics that had surprised the enemy fleet. The Concorde studied these tactics with interest. They had not considered using large numbers of small, independent units. Their own military design focused on powerful, centralized ships. Human unpredictability had become an asset. Over the next months, the solar system changed. Joint repair operations restored damaged Concorde ships. Human crews worked side by side with alien engineers in orbit around Saturn. Language barriers slowly faded as translation systems improved. Culturally, Earth began to shift. Children grew up knowing that alien allies existed. Universities created new fields of study focused on interstellar diplomacy. Artists imagined what life among the stars might look like, but there was still caution. Reports from Concorde intelligence suggested that the enemy fleet had not been destroyed. It had retreated to regroup. The larger war beyond the solar system continued. Earth was no longer a hidden, developing planet. It was now listed in galactic records as an emerging strategic power, and all of it had started with a signal that was never meant for humanity in the end. The Concorde representative delivered one final message during a joint broadcast viewed across Earth. Your species was not prepared for the stars. Yet, when called by accident, you answered. That decision altered survival probabilities across multiple systems for centuries. Humanity had looked up at the night sky and wondered if someone else was watching. Now we knew the truth. They were, and they would never underestimate us again.